The hunt changes men, warping their resolve into something monstrous. Once noble intentions twist into cruel convictions, and the line between hunter and beast begins to blur. Aldric, the youngest among the lamp flames, stood at the precipice of such change, as his comrades prepared to bring ruin upon a quiet village. This was not a hunt for beasts, it was the raising of innocence. Ahead, the villagers huddled in their homes, shadows flickering against the windows as candlelight fought back the encroaching darkness. Aldric's breath caught as he saw the frightened faces of children peering through the cracks in the wooden doors.
This isn't right. These are people, not beasts.
Lysandra, tall and broad-shouldered, walked beside him. Her imposing figure cast a long shadow in the firelight, but her voice, when it came, was soft.
Hush, Oldie. You've said your piece already. Magnus and Elias won't hear it.
Elias, carrying the largest torch, turned sharply.
This again. You see frightened villagers? I see monsters waiting to awaken. It only takes one. If we're not thorough, one infected beast in this entire region is doomed.
Magnus, ever the cynic, chuckled darkly and clapped Aldric on the back.
You're still blabbering on, lamb. A hunter's job is to root out beasts wherever they are. So what say we do our duty, yeah?
Before Aldric could respond, Lysandra stepped between him and the others. Her imposing frame loomed over Magnus, and her voice was cold steel.
Back off, Magnus. Even I'll admit, burning an entire village on orders from the powder kegs. It's unusual.
Enough! We join the powder kegs to fight beasts, and they call the shots, understood? They say Scourge is here, then we eliminate it.
He stepped closer to Aldric, his grip on the young hunter's shoulder firm but unyielding.
It's too late. They're all meant for the flames. I know how you feel, Aldric. But you remember like I do. Beasts don't spare anyone. Our families, our friends, no one. So we stop them.
But we don't know that for sure. And we're going to destroy this village. On a guess. This is wrong, Elias. You know that. You all know that. Don't you?
The group fell silent as the weight of Aldric's words settled over them. But the tension broke when Magnus, with a mocking grin, lit a torch and hurled it towards the nearest hut.
No!
Aldric leapt out to attempt to help. Lysandra grabbed Aldric by the arm, her voice fierce.
Oldie, stop!
The dry wood ignited instantly.
No, there are people in there!
The village erupted into chaos as the flames spread. Screams filled the air as villagers fled their homes, the firelight casting jagged shadows across the cobblestone streets. A low, resonant hum began to vibrate through the air, faint at first, but growing steadily louder.
What the hell is that?
Aldric froze, his eyes darting around the burning village. The sound seemed to come from everywhere at once. Lysandra's wolf, a massive silver-furred beast, growled low in its throat, its ears flattening against its head. Lysandra's hand went instinctively to the hilt of her axe as she scanned the growing shadows.
What do you see, Varen?
The hum crescendoed, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Villagers screamed as the shadows began to twist and writhe unnaturally, coiling like living things. A massive roar shattered the night, primal and deafening. From the twisting shadows, tendrils of darkness formed into grotesque, writhing limbs. The villagers fled in terror, their cries swallowed by the unnatural noise. Lysandra's wolf leapt forward, its growls feral as it lunged at one of the shadowed forms. For a moment, it seemed to hold its own, tearing into the darkness with fierce determination, but the shadows surged, enveloping the beast entirely.
No! No! No!
She tore into the shadows with reckless abandon, her stripes wild and desperate, her eyes crazed with rage before swallowed into the abyss.
Lysandra, wait!
But she was already lost to her rage. The air was thick with smoke, ash, and the screams of terrified villagers. Aldric stood frozen in the middle of it all, his hands gripping his weapon, his breath ragged, as the scene unfolded before him.
God, this is madness!
In the heart of the chaos, Aldric's dread grew. The village was no longer a battlefield. It was a slaughterhouse. And at its center were the men he had once called brothers, now unrecognizable in their violence. A scream pierced the night, high-pitched and frantic. Aldric turned toward the sound, his heart sinking as he spotted Garrett at the far end of the village square. The hunter's once pristine coat was streaked with soot and blood, and his expression was eerily calm as he directed several other hunters to drag struggling villagers into line. The captives were children, their wide, tear-filled eyes darting in terror as Garrett barked orders. Behind him loomed massive iron cages, hastily assembled and meant to hold the smallest prisoners. Aldric shouted as he sprinted toward him.
Wait, what is this?
Garrett didn't flinch. His attention focused on the task at hand, barely sparing a glance at Aldric all the while.
We need them alive. They're young. If they've been infected, they can still be studied. The powder kegs in church will want answers. And these are answers.
Aldric's mind raced, his chest heaving as he stared Garrett in disbelief.
What orders? You're taking children, Garrett. They're not beasts.
Garrett finally turned, his expression blank, his voice devoid of emotion.
They will be. You've seen it. We all have. It only takes one. Would you rather we wait for that? Go preach your sentiments to those graves. They're the only ones who care for your sympathies.
The sound of gunfire erupted nearby, drawing Aldric's attention. He turned to see Elias standing atop a broken wall, his pistol raised as he fired wildly into the darkness. His face was twisted in rage, and his voice boomed above the chaos.
Come out, you monsters, come at me. Try taking me now.
Elias reloaded with fervor, his torch casting a flickering glow over his sweat-drenched face. He fired again, the shot ricocheting off stone as the villagers fled into the shadows.
Elias! Please, stop!
No, this is the only way to be sure. You don't see it, they're all beasts. Infected or not, they'll turn. They always turn.
Before he could respond, Aldric saw to his left another horror unfolded. Magnus stood beside a row of homes, his grin twisted and manic as he hurled more fire onto the already burning structures. His torch arced through the air, igniting rooftops and sending walls collapsing in showers of embers.
Burn it all. Better ashes than beasts, little lamb.
A family scrambled from one of the collapsing homes, their faces streaked with soot and tears. Magnus didn't even look at them as he held another torch, forcing them to scatter.
Run!
Magnus turned, his expression wild and unfocused.
Why, you're wasting my kindling.
Magnus draws and aims his blunderbuss at the fleeing citizens. With callous dismissal fires upon them, the devastating blast leaves smeared ruins.
There, see? Now they can feed it. Look at my fire, boy. They're only going to feed it.
Aldric stood in the middle of the chaos, his breaths coming in shallow gasps, as he looked from one horror to the next. Garrett's cold pragmatism, Elias's wild fury, Magnus's reckless destruction, it was too much. These were his friends, his family, and they had become monsters in their own right.
What's wrong with you all? Don't you see you're hurting people? This isn't what we're supposed to be.
In the heart of the fire, Aldric saw the truth. The lamp flames were no longer hunters. They were the scourge they had sworn to destroy, and in his heart he felt the first stirrings of true dread. The hum began again, low and resonant, vibrating through the ground. Aldric stumbled as the air around him seemed to shift and warp. He turned to the burning sky, his eyes widening as the shadows twisted and coiled into impossible shapes.
What is that sound? Don't you hear that?
From above, a massive, otherworldly form descended. A horrid shadow, its grotesque limbs stretching unnaturally, looming over the burning village. Its many eyes glowed faintly, each one fixed on Aldric.
Gods. What is that?
The creature reached for it, its massive hand enveloping him in shadow. Aldric tried to resist, swinging his blade wildly, but it was futile. The hum grew louder, drilling into his mind as the creature lifted him from the ground. The last thing he saw before the darkness consumed him was the ash-filled skies. At that moment, Aldric was lost, taken by a force beyond comprehension. His fate bound to the nightmare that awaited him. Pulled into the nightmare, Aldric wanders a realm beyond time and reason, where twisted echoes of his past claw at his sanity. Aldric stumbled forward, each step unsteady on the warped ground beneath him. His boots crunched over a surface that seemed to shift between stone, flesh, and liquid. The air was thick, oppressive, and his breathing came in sharp, ragged gasps.
What's happening?
His voice was barely audible. His surroundings were a labyrinth of grotesque shapes and impossible geometry, the very space around him twisting unnaturally. He paused, glancing down at his trembling hands.
Where am I? Am I dead?
I found us a hunter.
Aldric froze, his breath catching in his throat. The voice was unmistakable, gentle, yet haunting, like a lullaby sung over a grave. His sight began spinning, all sense of direction frayed to its limit. It felt like falling, an endless descent through a void where no ground awaited. The weight of the nightmare pressed in on him, a suffocating, formless thing, its grasp tightening with every passing second. Shadows clung to him like tar, whispering in a language he didn't understand. The voices both distant and deafening, the echoes of his memories played out in fragments, images splintered and reformed, a grotesque kaleidoscope of pain, loss, and the burden he had carried alone. Then, something changed. A pulse, a warmth in the cold abyss, spread through the darkness like the first flicker of dawn beyond the horizon.
Good hunter, it is time to wake.
The sound of her voice reverberated inside him, a tether to something beyond the void. A warmth cradled his limbs, pulling him away from the weight of the abyss. The shadow recoiled, writhing as if something greater had laid claim to him. Then came the light. Not a sudden burst, but a slow unraveling, a gentle unveiling of form and color where there had been only endless dark. The twisted geometry of the nightmare blurred, melting into something softer. The scent of wet earth replaced the stench of blood and decay. The silver glow of the hunter's dream, stretching across the familiar landscape. The towering gravestones stood solemn, untouched by time. The great tree in the courtyard swayed gently, and before him, standing with quiet patience, was the doll. Her porcelain face was unreadable, but the tilt of her head, the faint glimmer behind her glass eyes, suggested something close to relief. She reached out, her slender fingers resting just above his own, as though guiding him the final step into the dream.
Welcome home, good hunter.
Aldric let out a slow breath. His body ached, his mind still clouded with the lingering echoes of the nightmare, but he was elated to be away from it.
A doll? What dream? What are you talking about? What's going on?
Good hunter, you were pulled into the nightmare by a creature beyond the waking world, where you have been lost until you were called here, to the dream.
That monster, that was...
A rush of static filled the air, and Aldric stumbled as flashes of memory tore through his mind.
I tried to stop them. Elias. All of them were so... angry. I thought I could save them. I thought just by trying to convince them otherwise, maybe I could have saved everyone.
The doll's voice grew sharper now, no longer soothing but cutting.
You failed, Aldric. Your desire to prevent that massacre ended in vain. Since then, one by one, your comrades fell to the allure of fire, blood, in their own lust for the hunt.
It wasn't always this way. They were pure ones, before hate and the blood.
And yet, despite that, they still became the very monsters they sought to destroy. except you. You have been chosen, so it would seem, to fulfill a greater purpose, one you can feel in your soul. You are Hunter, are you not?
Aldric only paused for a moment. He knew what he felt, but his heart grew heavy with its implications.
No.
Neither the Scourge nor the Hunt will end with your comrades. But perhaps greater tragedy could be avoided if you remain resolute.
This all feels like I don't have a choice. Maybe it doesn't matter. They still have to be stopped. And it has to be me.
These gravestones are your path, good Hunter. Through them, you will be carried to the locations of your comrades, who have embraced the bestial call of their dark hearts. Who should the hunt begin with?
He exhaled slowly, his breath fogging in the chill air.
Magnus.
Something overcame Aldric. Something that superseded his apprehension. The aged stone of the grave pulsed with an unknown energy as if resonating with Aldric's intent. Armed with the tools of the hunt and clothed in its mantle, Aldric took his first steps forward.
May you find your worth in the waking world.
The doll's voice followed him as Aldric reached out a hand toward the gravestone and disappeared into the darkness. Aldric emerges from fog and shadow before a lamppost. As he surveyed his surroundings, he felt the faintest sense of familiarity disappear. What he thought were mere moments in that accursed realm, the world endured as years. Yet his focus returned to Magnus, a man who worshipped fire as a god, believing it could purify the world itself, but fire, once unleashed, has no master. The wind howled faintly through the empty streets, carrying the acrid stench of burning oil and charred wood. The munitions factory loomed ahead, its jagged silhouette cutting sharply into the crimson-hued sky. Aldric's boots crunched over gravel as he approached, his steps slow and deliberate. The gates were iron and blackened with soot, towering above him like the gates to some infernal cathedral. A faint glow from within the factory hinted at the flames that still roared inside, still tended by their keeper.
Hearthpire munitions. So this is what your twisted fascination made you create.
He hesitated at the gate, his hand brushing against the cold metal. A familiar voice, soft yet unsettling, drifted through his mind, the doll.
Good Hunter, there is grief in your heart. Are you not here to end this for the good of all?
Aldric froze, his hand tightening on the hilt of his blade. He let the question hang in the air for a moment, his jaw clenched.
Magnus was always distant, but he was still one of us. I hate what the hunt did to him. To all of them. But grief. I don't have time for grief anymore.
With a heavy shove, he pushed the gates open. The creak of rusted iron echoed through the yard, reverberating against the empty buildings. Inside the factory was a labyrinth of broken machinery and scorched iron. Aldric's boots crunched over the shattered glass and debris as he stepped inside, his hand gripping the hilt of his blade. The air was thick and choking, heavy with the smell of burning oil and molten metal. Shadows danced wildly across the walls, cast by the roaring furnaces that lined the far side of the room. A deafening roar of flames erupted from the largest furnace, sending sparks flying into the air. The fire's glow illuminated the room in hellish orange, casting jagged shadows across the walls. From above, a voice rang out, booming and bitter.
Who's the fool who dare trespass? Get out, or be fed to the flames.
A figure stepped into view on the scaffolding high above the factory floor. Magnus. His silhouette was massive, Outlined by the roaring flames behind him, the distorted remnants of his hunter's garb hung from his shoulders, blackened and torn, while his face glowed faintly in the flickering light.
A hunter, is it? All the same. You had your warning.
Aldric stepped forward, his gaze locking onto the figure above.
Magnus, I wish it were good to see you again.
Magnus stared at the stranger, trying to discern his meaning until he met his stone-grey eyes. Cold and grim, but unforgettable. He snaps alive, stammering to clear his mind of words and confusion.
Little lamb, not dead. Elias, you fool.
Look at what you've all become. I'm here to end the madness. No more innocent lives burned in your damn fires.
Magnus shakes off the moment of hesitation to let out a sharp laugh. The sound echoing through the factory like a crack of thunder. He stepped closer to the edge of the scaffolding, his boots heavy against the metal.
Back from the dead and still on about innocence. You know the beast don't care about any of your precious innocence. You dull git. Wisen up. My way works, lamb. Burn them all till there's nothing but ashes.
Aldric's hand hovered near his weapon, his knuckles white with tension.
Yes, you're right about beasts. They are lost to the blood they spill. They can't hear the cries of the lost souls. And all you hear are the roars of your damned fires, Magnus. All you've burned away is your putrid humanity.
Magnus' boots stomped heavy across the scaffolding as he leaned over the railing, his face twisted with fury.
Don't you dare look down on me, Aldric. We searched for you everywhere for years. You didn't see what Elias became, what he made us do. We swore vengeance on beasts, the gods, on the world itself for you. But he promised us strength, and he was right. Now, we're more than gods. So piss on your judgment. You came here for my neck, didn't you? My fires won't be judged. Not by a lost lamb.
Aldric lowered his gaze, his expression dark.
Good hunter, whether of your judgment or not, it is all but certain for him tonight. It all will end in ash.
I'm sorry, Magnus, for my part in all this, but you misunderstand me. I'm not judging you. All those souls you've forsaken are. This is their revenge.
Magnus let out a low laugh, the sound reverberating through the factory as the flames roared higher. The shadows of the two hunters stretched long across the iron walls, their forms distorted and monstrous. The factory groaned as the heat intensified, metal straining under its own weight. An explosion shattered the silence, shaking the ground and sending shrapnel screaming through the air. Aldric ducked behind a rusted pillar just in time, shielding himself as debris clattered to the floor around him. The acrid stench of burning oil filled his lungs and he coughed, his vision swimming in the thick, choking smoke. Another explosion rocked the factory, this time closer. Flames erupted from a ruptured barrel, casting long shadows across the walls. Aldric threw himself behind a fallen beam as molten debris rained down. Narrowly avoiding the inferno, Magnus's laughter grew louder, booming from above. Aldric's jaw tightened as he scanned his surroundings, his mind racing. The factory was a labyrinth of broken machinery and volatile chemicals, each corner more dangerous than the last. But it also offered an opportunity. His eyes locked onto a series of hanging chains near the far wall. Above them, an old pulley system groaned under the weight of a rusted platform, laden with barrels of oil.
That should work.
Weaving through the wreckage as Magnus heaved another incendiary bomb, exploding nearby, sending a wave of heat and smoke cascading through the room. Aldric ducked low, his body pressed to the ground as flames roared overhead. Magnus peered down from the scaffolding, his eyes fiery, scanning the chaos below.
Did you vanish again, lamb?
Aldric didn't answer. Instead, he made sure he was within reach of his target, his hands working quickly to loosen the rusted chains. The mechanism groaned in protest as he adjusted the tension. Aldric gritted his teeth, yanking the final chain into place. Magnus snarled. His head snapping toward the sound, Aldric stepped into the open, his silhouette stark against the flames. Magnus roared, leaping down from the scaffolding with a deafening crash. The catwalks trembled under his weight as he landed, the grotesque burns that marred his flesh. Magnus sneered, his voice booming with unhinged glee.
You think you've seen fire, Aldric? You haven't even glimpsed the inferno. Watch closely, little lamb. I am fire.
As he spoke, Magnus's body convulsed violently. He doubled over, his massive hands erupting into claws as a low, guttural growl rumbled from his throat. The air around him seemed to shimmer, the heat intensifying as his body began to twist and contort. Aldric's grip tightened on his blade as he stepped back, his voice filled with both anger and dread.
Oh, Magnus, you damned fool.
The scars that marred his skin burned brighter, flames licking at the edges of his flesh as his very body were fuel for the fire. Smoke poured from his mouth and nostrils with every labored breath, his chest heaving like a bellows. All at once his body erupted into anger, birthing his new bestial form. His warped legs bent backward, thick and powerful, the claws on his feet scraping deep into the floor as he planted himself firmly. When he stood upright, he towered over Aldric, his massive, hulking frame almost too large for the catwalk's confined space. A monstrous, fattened wolf, wreathed in smoke and fire, the sheer heat radiating from him forcing Aldric to take a step back. Magnus opened his maw, his voice now a guttural roar that reverberated through the factory.
Burn with me.
Never! Come on!
With a deafening roar, Magnus charged. His massive claws swinging through the air, Aldric darted side to side, narrowly avoiding the strike as the ground erupted in sparks. He moved with purpose. Leading Magnus toward the rigged platform, Aldric raised his blunderbuss, with one steady breath, pulled the trigger. The shot rang out, the projectile shattering the rusted platform, sending the oil barrels crashing down atop Magnus's awful carapace. Aldric took a second, breathed, and fired again, igniting the oil-drenched beast in a tremendous explosion of flame. Aldric is thrown back, crashing into the metal rails. Suddenly, the factory fell eerily silent, save for the faint crackle of dying flames. Smoke curled lazily through the air, obscuring the twisted oil-soaked ruin. The factory groans, the heat unbearable. Thick smoke chokes the air, and the embers rain from above. Aldric stands, chest heaving, his blunderbuss smoking. Across from him, Magnus, a grotesque flame-wreathed beast, staggers from the inferno. His hulking, misshapen form, once swollen with fire, is now scorched, blackened, his fur seared away in patches, skin still simmering with embers. Magnus snarls, his voice a guttural growl, but behind the rage there is pain. His flesh peels from the heat, his claws barely able to lift, his body failing him, yet still he charges.
You think flames can take me? The fire is mine to command.
His massive claw swipes, a desperate, wild attack, too slow, too weak. Aldric ducks. His cleaver whips out in a sudden arc, its curved edge tearing into Magnus's smoldering flesh. The first cut lands. A rush of warmth floods through Aldric, his wounds knitting as he feels the rallying surge of battle. The next strike comes faster. His blade flashes through the smoke, slicing through Magnus's charred muscle, then another, then another. Each blow feeds him. Each impact drives back the flames, smothering them with every deep, relentless strike. Aldric slams the hilt of his blade in Magnus's ribs, the force driving the beast back, his molten body cracking, steaming. The fire dims, its grip on Magnus faltering.
No more fire. No more madness. No more!
Magnus roars, the sound more human than before, his massive form staggering, failing. He lunges weakly, but Aldric sidesteps, his blade singing through the air, one final, sweeping strike. The blade carves through Magnus's chest, a gaping wound bursting open. The last of the flames sputter and die. Magnus stumbles back, his breath ragged, his body no longer burning, just ruined. He lifts a shaking, clawed hand, staring at it, his fire snuffed out.
Little lamb, all grown up, a proper hunter. Do us a favor, yeah? Tell them I'll be waiting for them.
Farewell, Magnus.
Magnus of the lamp flame is no more, his life extinguished. As he emerged from the ruined factory, Aldric breathed in the chilled air as he approached the lamppost. His fingers grazed the flame, and the world itself warped around him. He quickly came to the dream once again. The doll's eerily warm presence before him.
Welcome back, good hunter. I see. You've felled your target. Well done.
Let's just move on.
Of course. Where would you go next?
Where is Lysandra?
Dwelling within the dark forest, accompanied only by her foul beasts. You need only touch the gravestone.
In a moment, Aldric found himself once again before a lamppost. This one nestled along a walking path, and ahead lay the dark forest. And as Aldric continued his grim journey, his resolve hardened. To save Yharnam, he would offer his comrades one final mercy. Fire is fleeting, its chaos short-lived. Beasts, however, are far more enduring. They prowl the wilds, their roars echoing under the cursed moon, unshackled by the laws of men. The air grew colder as Aldric stepped into the dense forest, its canopy twisting overhead to block out the pale light of the cursed moon. Wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it faint howls that chilled the blood. Each crunch of leaves beneath his boot echoed unnaturally, as though the forest were alive and listening. A faint growl broke the stillness, low and guttural. Aldric froze, his eyes narrowing as his grip tightened on his blade. The sound echoed through the trees, distant yet purposeful, like the warning of a predator stalking its prey. As the shadows pressed closer, a voice whispered in his mind, soft and calming, yet laced with unease. It was the doll, ever present in the dream.
Good hunter, she knows you are here. Her eyes are sharp, her ferocity sharper still. How will you face her in a forest that bends to her will?
Aldric exhaled slowly, glancing upward at the swaying branches overhead.
Carefully. She is patient. She'll wait until I step into her trap. So, the trick is to turn it into mine.
Be wary, good hunter. The forest is not just hers. It is alive, watching you as she does.
Aldric stepped into a small clearing where the moonlight filtered weakly through the canopy above. The air was thick and heavy, the oppressive silence broken only by the faint rustle of leaves. Kneeling, he uncorked a vial of beast scent and poured it in a deliberate trail across the forest floor. The liquid's sharp, acrid smell wafted upward, clinging to the damp earth.
I haven't used this trick in a while.
He stood before the thicket, poised, his blade ready in one hand, his breath slow and controlled. He waited, his ears straining against the quiet. A growl rumbled from the shadows ahead, low and uncertain. A shape moved between the trees, broad and hulking. Her powerful frame, moving with predatory grace, Lysandra emerged slowly, her eyes burning faintly in the moonlight. A strange mixture of hunger and recognition. For a moment, she simply stared at him, her head tilted to the side, as if she were trying to piece together a puzzle she had long forgotten. When she finally spoke, her voice was rough and strained, barely human, but beneath it lingered the ghost of something softer. She sniffed deeply.
A hunter in my forest, reeking of oil, blood, wheat. No.
Aldric froze, his blade trembling in his hand. He couldn't bring himself to look away from her. Her face, though twisted and scarred, still held faint traces of the woman who had once been his family. Lysandra let out a noise that was somewhere between a growl and a pained howl. Her broad shoulders shook as she looked him over, her massive claws flexing at her sides. Aldric's throat tightened, and for a moment he hesitated. His resolve faltered as he looked at her, at what she had become. He saw the scars that marred her body, the twisted muscles, the faint fur that clung to her misshapen limbs. She was still Lysandra, but barely. Her head snapped up, her eyes narrowing as she growled, her voice deeper, now more guttural. She took a step closer, her massive frame towering over him.
Lysandra. It's me. It's Aldric.
She stepped closer, her claws scraping against the earth, her burning eyes narrowing as she stared upon him. Aldric pulls down his scarf, stepping into the moonlight. Upon seeing his eyes, her snarling and growling crumble into soft cries and whimpers.
Aldi, alive.
Her words hit him like a blade to the chest. Aldric took a hesitant step forward, lowering his weapon, his heart growing heavier by the moment.
Why did you do this to yourself? God. I'm so sorry. Please come with me, Sandy. Let me help you.
No, stay there. Your scent is so foul. Blood. Oil.
Here goes Magnus.
She straightened, her glowing eyes meeting his, and for the briefest moment the woman he once knew shone through.
Did he hurt you?
No. No, I'm all right, I promise.
You're strong now. Good lad. Be good. Strong. Please.
Her body convulsed, a guttural growl escaping her lips as she staggered back. Her claws twitched, her breathing growing heavier, more feral.
Sandy.
Her growls deepened as her body began to shift. Her shoulders broadened, her limbs elongated as thick, matted fur sprouted from her skin. The last flicker of recognition in her eyes disappeared, replaced by a primal hunger. Her howl summoned two companion direwolves to emerge from the dark woods. The jaws snarled, with dagger teeth aching for the taste of flesh. The beasts lunged as one, their movements swift and brutal. Aldric leapt to the side, narrowly avoiding the claws of the first creature as it tore through the ground where he stood. The second came from the opposite direction, jaws snapping at his shoulder, Aldric twisting, bringing his blade up at a sharp angle that caught the beast across its flank. The wounded creature howled, staggering back, but the first was already upon him again. Aldric raised his arm, the beast's claws scraping against the reinforced gauntlet. He gritted his teeth and drove his blade upward, piercing its chest in one fluid motion. Blood sprayed across the clearing as the beast collapsed, its body twitching in the upturned earth. Aldric turned to face the second, his breath ragged but controlled. The surviving beast circled him, its glowing eyes narrowing as it prepared to strike. Aldric reached into his satchel and retrieved a silver wire trap. Setting it quickly in the dirt, he stepped back, baiting the creature with a deliberate movement.
Come on!
The beast lunged, its weight triggering the trap. The wires snapped taut, binding its limbs and dragging it to the ground. Its glowing eyes wild with fury, but it was helpless. Aldric stood over it, his chest heaving. He raised his blade and drove it down, ending the creature's struggle. The clearing fell silent once more, the heavy stench of blood hanging in the air, while Aldric staggered back, chest heaving as his eyes shot up to Lysandra. Her feral roars rang out as she was already upon him, her claws slashing toward his chest. Aldric raised his blade just in time, the force of the blow nearly knocking him off his feet. Lysandra charged again, her claws carving deep gouges into the earth as she closed the distance. Aldric stepped back, his footing slipping on the blood-slick ground, but he managed to raise his blade in time to parry. The force of her strike sent him stumbling, her arms trembling from the impact. Aldric gritted his teeth, deflecting another swipe before rolling to the side to avoid her follow-up. He came up to his feet, panting, his blade heavy in his grip.
Fight this, please!
Within her, her movements faltering for a moment, her broad chest heaving as her burning eyes locked onto his. She lunged again, but her steps lacked the precision they'd held moments ago. Aldric sidestepped her, bringing his blade up to her exposed side, but he hesitated. His strike faltered, grazing her arm instead of cutting deep. The two stumbled away from each other for a moment. Her growl was bitter, rasping as she steadied herself, her hulking frame visibly trembling.
Please, you're not a monster.
Her legs buckled slightly, and she caught herself with one clawed hand against a tree. The rage in her eye dimmed, replaced by exhaustion, and a glimmer of something familiar. Recognition, even warmth.
No, it's too late. I hunted so many, but the blood is too strong. I can feel it. Always crying for more. So yes, I am a monster, and you're a hunter, aren't you?
Aldric lowered his blade, his breath unsteady as he took a step forward.
Please, it doesn't have to be this way.
Aldi. It does.
She straightened, her powerful frame burgeoning with a fierce darkness. Her claws poised to strike, she lunges, her claws slashing through the air. Aldric snaps his blade up, barely deflecting the blow. The force of the strike sends him skidding back, his boots digging into the soft forest earth. She doesn't let up, pressing forward, her massive claws swiping in rapid succession. Each blow is stronger than the last. Aldric's arms shake with each deflection, his every muscle straining against the overwhelming power of her onslaught. A swipe to his left, he sidesteps. A clawed foot sweeps at his legs. He barely jumps in time. A feint, he reacts late. She closes in instantly, her towering form looming over him, his blood dripping off of her ragged claws.
Stand. Fight.
Aldric grits his teeth, his heart pounding. His grip tightening on his blade. He's losing ground. If she lands a clean hit, she'll tear him apart. She lunges again, going for his throat. Aldric moves on instinct. His body remembers something before his mind does. A step to the side. Her claw barely misses his neck. His left arm shoots up. His blade flashes, the tip plunging deep into her side. A perfect riposte. Lysandra staggers, her eyes widening, the wound bleeding freely. She stumbles back, her claws twitching. The forest falls silent except for the drip of blood onto the leaves. Aldric pants, his arms still raised, his eyes locked onto her. Lysandra lets out a slow, shuddering breath, one massive claw pressing against her wound. She laughs, softly, before pressing herself against the nearest tree. They stand there, catching their breath, staring at each other across the blood-stained clearing.
It's okay. That's a good lad.
As the crimson flowed from her, she let her massive frame collapse to the blood-stained earth. Her breathing slowed, each rise and fall of her chest heavier than the last. Aldric dropped his blade, his knees hitting the ground as he stared at her.
Be better than me, Aldi. Don't let hate make you a monster. I'm sorry I can't stay with you, but you're so strong now. I'm so happy. Stay a good person. I'm so proud of you, Aldi. I'll be waiting.
But her head dipped forward, her body going still as the last breath escaped her lips. The forest fell silent, the shadows retreating as if they too mourned her passing. And so Lysandra fell, not by blade or claw, but by the weight of her own grief. In her final moments, Lysandra chose to let go, sparing Aldric the burden of delivering a fatal blow. Aldric sat in the clearing for what felt like hours, his blade lying forgotten at his side. When he finally rose, he did so with trembling hands, his voice breaking as he whispered into the quiet. He laid a single wildflower, clasped between her hands.
Thank you. I'll do what I can to honor your wishes. But I wish you could have stayed with me. Bye, Sandy.
He turned and walked away, the forest parting for him as if in mourning. In the dark heart of Yharnam's forest, a bond was severed. A hunter and his sister parted by the curse of the hunt. Upon reaching the lamppost once more, Aldric found himself surrounded by the murky ethereal essences, returning him to the dream. The hunter's dream stood in its perpetual twilight, where the pale moon loomed overhead like an indifferent god. The air was still, save for the whisper of wind curling through the graves and the distant crackle of the lantern's flame. Aldric approached slowly, his boots pressing into the soft, endless soil of the dream. He exhaled, weary, his body aching from wounds that had yet to heal. The doll, ever waiting, inclined her head as he drew near. Her porcelain face held its eternal serenity, her glassy eyes reflecting the moon above.
Welcome home, good hunter. Rest your weariness for a moment, and allow me to restore some of your vitality.
She knelt before him, her delicate hands hovering just above his wounds. A faint glow pulsed around her fingertips, spreading a warmth through Aldric's body. His breathing steadied, the pain dulled. He flexed his fingers, rolling his shoulders, feeling the life return to his limbs. Something gnawed at him, something he had long questioned.
It never affected me. The blood. Why? I used it to heal wounds in the past just as they did. Does that have to do with why I'm here?
The doll tilted her head slightly, considering his words with an air of timeless patience.
Does the fish ask why it does not drown in the sea? Does the bird question the sky that holds its wings?
A deliberate evasion. He looked up at her, his eyes searching, but the doll remained composed, unmoving. The words settled like stone in Aldric's chest. His fingers twitched toward his weapon, not in aggression, but in frustration. He sucked in a breath, forcing himself to let it go.
Would you even have any answers at all? Those vapid eyes. Is that even a smile?
The tension dissolved as swiftly as it had risen, the doll's posture returning to its usual grace.
Your thoughts drift still to the hunt, to the next step. Tell me, good hunter, who is your next prey?
Aldric was silent for a moment. The firelight flickered in his eyes, but no warmth reached them.
Garrett.
The doll seemed to muse on the name. The corners of her lips almost almost, curving into something resembling...
Ah, the seeker of knowledge. The alchemist who discarded his own humanity for something greater.
In his mind, perhaps. The bastard took children. I should have... Doesn't change anything. But I can stop him now.
Aldric's gaze sharpened. His fists clenching, the doll nodded slowly, an air of quiet reverence surrounding her. The doll's unblinking eyes remained fixed upon him. There was something in them, not sadness, not joy, but something deeper. Understanding, perhaps.
Then go forth, and may the hunt grant you purpose, and find your worth in the waking world.
A faint hum filled the air as the gravestones trembled. The presence of something vast, unseen, brushed against Aldric's soul, a whisper from the dream. A silent decree from whatever force had marked him. Aldric exhaled. Steeling himself, his boots echoed against the stone as he stepped forward, disappearing into the mist. Emerging from the fog immediately, Aldric felt the air grew heavier. The weak light of the lamppost gives just enough to make out the chain fence surrounding the mysterious building he finds himself outside. Noting how vast the interior must be as he approaches the doors, but the surprising desolation was a deeper shock than the dilapidated structure. Each step revealed the horrid depths of what was clearly a laboratory. Toxic fumes swirled in the dim light of bubbling vats, and the acrid scent of chemicals burned at his throat. His boots echoed against the slick stone floor, the sound swallowed by the oppressive atmosphere.
Finally. I was feeling neglected, wondering if you were planning on stopping by on your return tour. Oh, don't be surprised. I've had my eyes on you since you popped back up from out of nowhere. You've been busy, haven't you?
I'm here now. Let's drop the pageantry.
Patience. Patience. You always were a pushy little brat. Were you this hasty with the others before you put them in the ground?
Aldric's jaw clenched. He noticed how the glow of the vats illuminated grotesque figures suspended in glass. Twisted amalgamations of human and beast floated in thick, viscous liquid, their faces frozen, expressions of torment.
You're a madman. How could you?
Says the fratricidal mongrel. Don't pretend like you're still clinging to those quaint little ideals of yours. The hunt was never about saving people. It was about killing beasts for you. But for me, it was about progress. About knowledge. Looking to what's next. And I found it. These creatures, my work, they're a glimpse of what we could become. Perfection through transformation.
You turned them into monsters. They were people.
And what a beast, Aldric. Were they not human once? Were they not your neighbors, your brothers, your friends? They were already monsters, just waiting to change. All I've done is give them the nudge they needed. Can't you see? They were weak. But now, they're strong, beautiful.
Curse your soul, Garrett. I see the real beast I've come to put down.
You'll try. Oh, I know you'll try. But you won't stop me. You might have grown up, little Aldric, but you're still an annoying brat. I'll show you what you're up against.
With that, Garrett hurled the vial at the ground, releasing a cloud of blinding smoke. Aldrich shielded his face, coughing as the noxious fumes stung his throat and eyes. When the smoke cleared, Garrett was no longer the man Aldrich once knew. He had consumed one of his own concoctions. His body grotesquely transformed, his limbs were elongated and twisted, his skin glowing faintly with the sickly green veins that pulsed like a beating heart. His hands ended in claw-like appendages, dripping with a viscous, corrosive substance. His voice, now deep and distorted, reverberated through the chamber.
This is perfection.
The room exploded into chaos as Garrett lunged forward with unnatural speed, his claws swiping through the air with deadly precision. Aldric barely managed to dodge, rolling to the side as the corrupted alchemist's strike shattered a nearby vat. Acidic liquid spilled onto the floor, hissing and smoking as it ate away at the stone. Garrett laughed, a guttural sound that resonated with madness. Aldric leapt back as Garrett swung again, narrowly avoiding the stream of acid that splattered across a nearby wall. His mind raced. His eyes darted as he frantically searched for an opening.
He has lost himself entirely. Good hunter, you must take caution in your approach.
I see.
Garrett roared, hurling another stream of acid that forced Aldric to dive behind a toppled table. Aldric gritted his teeth, retrieving a silver wire trap from his satchel. He tossed the trap at Garrett's feet. The wire sprang to life, wrapping around the monstrous figure's legs and binding him temporarily. Garrett roared in frustration, his claws slashing at the wires as Aldric took aim with his rifle. A single, precise shot struck one of the glowing vats near Garrett. The explosion rocked the chamber, sending shards of glass and a wave of toxic liquid cascading across the floor. Garrett screamed, his mutated form reeling from the blast as smoke and sparks filled the air. He broke free from the trap, his movements slower but no less dangerous.
Come on then, you freak!
Aldric darted between the remaining vats, his deft agility keeping him ahead of Garrett's increasingly desperate attacks. Each time the monstrous alchemist lunged, Aldric struck back with calculated precision, aiming for exposed wounds. The rush of the blood rallied, taking its effect. Finally, after a brutal exchange, Aldric saw his chance. Garrett staggered, his body racked with convulsions as the toxins in his blood began to betray him. With a surge of determination, Aldric drove his blade into Garrett's chest, piercing his heart.
No. Can't be. No. Why? I am the solution.
His monstrous form collapsing to its knees, his blade still slick with the alchemist's corrupted blood. Aldric turned to leave, but a faint guttural sound stopped him in his tracks.
Man.
His instincts flared, his blade snapping up defensively as he spun to face Garrett's remains.
Gods.
The body twitched again, this time violently. Garrett's deep, distorted voice clawed its way from his throat, filled with pain and defiance.
Humanity be done. I am a god now. You can't stop what I've become.
His body convulsing with unnatural energy. The glowing veins beneath his skin pulsed erratically, casting eerie flashes of light across the chamber. His movements were jerky and uncoordinated, his once imposing form now a grotesque parody of its former self. But his claws were still sharp. Garrett lunged, his massive limbs propelling him forward with surprising speed. Aldric sidestepped just in time, his blade flashing in the dim light as he struck a glancing blow against Garrett's shoulder. The alchemist roared, a mixture of pain and fury, and swung his clawed arm in a wide arc. Aldric ducked, the claws whistling past his head and raking deep gouges into a nearby vat. The room erupted in chaos as the shattered vat spewed toxic liquid across the floor, its fumes rising in a choking cloud. Aldric coughed, retreating to a higher ground as Garrett thrashed wildly, his movements erratic but fueled by desperation. Aldric planted his feet, his eyes narrowing as he reached for the blunderbuss strapped to his back. The weapon gleamed faintly in the toxic haze, its barrel wide and formidable. As Garrett lunged, Aldric leveled the blunderbuss with practiced precision, his finger tightened on the trigger.
Wrong. You're just a cackling corpse I have to put down again.
The blast erupted with a deafening roar, the shot striking Garrett square in the chest. The force of the impact sent the alchemist sprawling backward, his body crashing into the remains of another vat. Garrett gasped, his massive form convulsing as the light in his glowing veins began to fade. He clawed weakly at the ground.
So close.
Garrett let out one final ragged breath, his body collapsing into a pool of glowing liquid. The chamber fell silent, save for the faint bubbling of the remaining vats. Aldric stepped forward, his expression hard but tinged with sorrow. He crouched beside Garrett's crumpled form.
You're nothing but a monster. Hunted and put down in the name of all you forsaken, Garrett. No. You and your name die here.
He turned to leave, his boots crunching softly against the shattered glass and debris that littered the floor. As he approached the chamber's exit, he paused.
From now on, you'll be less than a memory.
Looking back at the ruined laboratory one last time before stepping into the streets once more. The wind howled through the empty streets of Yharnam, carrying the distant toll of a bell. Aldric's boots echoed off cobblestone slick with dew, the worn leather creaking softly with each step. The blood-red moon loomed overhead, its dim light casting jagged shadows over the already desolate city. It stood somehow through years of neglect, weathered and ransacking.
Good hunter, do you not wish to return to the dream for respite?
No. No, I know exactly where he will be.
This final hunt may take a greater toll on your soul than you may be prepared to give, good hunter. Will you continue just the same?
When this is over, if I'm alive, maybe there is something greater you can show me. The truth. Doll. I want to know the truth.
Indeed. Then, may your hunt bring you greater purpose.
The desecrated chapel loomed in silence, its once majestic walls now marred with jagged cracks and streaks of blackened blood. Moonlight filtered weakly through the shattered, stained glass windows.
I knew it would be you. Always you, little brother.
We were family once. But you turned them into monsters. Why?
The air was heavy with tension, thick enough to drown out even the faintest sound.
Why? Because the hunt never needed saints. It needed survivors. And I gave them purpose, Aldric. I gave them strength when the world took everything else.
Aldric stood with his blade drawn, its edge glinting faintly in the dim light.
Strength? You think that's what this is? You lied to them. To me. You used our grief. And now look what's left.
Look around you. The city burns, the gods are silent, and beasts howl in every alley. I just stopped pretending any of it meant anything. I offered truth, raw and cruel.
No, you offered fear, dressed as purpose. You're lying to yourself otherwise.
What would you have done, Aldrich? Stayed meek? Watched our brothers die to a curse no one understands? I chose to fight. I made weapons because it was all we had left.
Aldric's expression steels. He exhales once, slow, measured, before raising his blade.
There's a part of me that understands you, Elias. We lived in fear. And fighting back was hope. I know where your heart wanted to be. But you gave it to the darkness and took us all with you.
They followed me because I told them what they needed to hear. That the hunt doesn't end. That the gods won't save us. That we must become what we fear to kill what we hate.
And what are you now?
A breath of silence, then Elias lunges. The fight begins. His movements relentless yet controlled. His claws tore through stone and wood, each strike narrowly missing Aldric. The hunter's mind raced as he dodged and weaved, his body moving instinctively to avoid the blows. But he rolled to his feet, his blade raised defensively. Elias charged again, his massive claws tearing through the air, and the ground beneath them cracked and splintered with the force of his blows. Aldric swung his blade in desperate counterattack, but Elias caught it with one clawed hand, the steel biting into his palm but not stopping him. With a growl, he flung Aldric across the room, the hunter's body slamming into a crumbling pillar. Aldric staggered to his feet, pain radiating through his body as he struggled to stand. His blade still clutched tightly in his hand. Blood dripped from a cut over his eye, obscuring his vision, but he refused to back down. The beast roared, the sound shaking the very foundations of the chapel. Without warning, Elias lunged, his claws slashing through the air with blinding speed. Aldric dove to the side, barely avoiding the strike, as the ground where he stood exploded into a shower of stone and dust. Elias roared once again, the sound filled with both fury and anguish. He charged once more, his massive form bearing down on Aldric like a freight train. Aldric braced himself, knowing he couldn't outrun the attack. At the last second, he sidestepped, narrowly avoiding the full force of the blow. Even so, Elias's claws grazed his side, tearing through leather and flesh. Aldric stumbled but kept his footing, gritting his teeth against the pain. As he turned to face Elias, he caught a glimpse of the beast's eyes, fierce and glowing, but still faintly human. Elias could have finished him, could have torn him apart with a single strike, but he hadn't. Something was holding him back. Elias growled, his massive form shuddering as if in conflict with itself. As Elias stood towering over Aldric, his massive claws twitching with restrained power, his fiery eyes burned with rage and sorrow, but Aldric's resolve was unyielding. His blade gleamed faintly in the fractured moonlight, his grip tight, his knuckles white. Blood dripped from cuts across his face and arms, but he paid no mind to the pain.
Stop this, Elias!
Then stop me if you can.
His voice echoing through the crumbling walls, and lunged with terrifying speed. Aldric met him head on, their clash a cacophony of steel against claws, blood against fire. Aldric slashed upward, his blade scraping against Elias's hardened skin, but the beast retaliated instantly, his claws raking across Aldric's chest. With a guttural cry, Aldric charged forward, his strikes coming in a relentless, desperate flurry. Each swing of his blade was fueled by anger, grief, and the faint hope that he could still reach the brother he had lost. Steel tore through flesh, each blow carving shallow gashes into Elias's monstrous frame. Blood, both beastly and human, splattered across the cold stone floor. With a sudden burst of strength, he sidestepped Elias's charge and drove his blade deep into the beast's chest. The steel pierced through muscle and bone, striking true. Elias let out a deafening roar that shook the very foundations of the chapel, his massive frame shuddering as the light in his eyes flickered and dimmed. The beast staggered, his claws twitching weakly as he collapsed to his knees. Blood pooled around him, his monstrous form shrinking and twisting as he reverted back to the scarred, broken man he once was. Aldric knelt beside him, his breath heavy, his heart breaking, as he looked into his brother's fading eyes.
Aldric, I was wrong about everything.
You don't have to do this, Elias.
I do. You all looked to me, followed me, right into the darkness. So please, wherever this curse takes me, wherever I go next, I'll find them. Our family. And I'll beg them for forgiveness.
You think it'll be enough?
No. But that's why I trust the rest to you. You still have that light in you, Aldric. That unbearable purity. Let it reach others. That mercy in your heart. The mercy I was too proud to let shine. That is your greatest gift, my brother.
Elias. I swear, I will do what I can to keep my promise to you all. And one day, our family can be together again.
Yes, one day. A glorious day.
Aldric sat there for a moment, his blade resting in his lap, blood dripping from his wounds. The weight of the hunt had never felt heavier. The beast of brotherhood was no more. In his final moments, Elias found the peace he had sought through rage and fire. But for Aldric, the hunt was not truly over. The scars of his journey, both physical and emotional, would remain. As he stepped from the desecrated chapel, the wind howled once more through the empty streets of Yharnam. The hunt had taken everything, but Aldric carried with him a single spark of hope. The promise that one day it would end. Aldric's boots echoed on the cobblestones as he disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind the ruins of a brotherhood forged in blood and fire. The sun cast a pale, muted glow over the desolate streets of Yharnam. The cobblestones glistened faintly with dew. The cracks filled with the remnants of blood and ash. Somewhere in the distance, the solemn toll of a bell echoed through the silence, a sound that carried both mourning and resolve. Through the empty streets walked a lone figure, his face obscured beneath a worn hood. His gait was steady, but his steps betrayed the weight of his journey. Aldric paused on the edge of a small square, his eyes scanning the ruins of what had once been a bustling district. His hood cast a shadow over his face, but the faint scars beneath it told a story of pain, loss, and survival. He let out a slow breath, his gloved hand brushing against the satchel at his side, where a tattered lamp flame insignia rested. His gaze lifted to the horizon, where the pale sun struggled to pierce the haze that hung over the city.
I see it now. The hunt doesn't end with blood. The hunt will never end with just calling beasts. If we keep fighting the same way, we'll keep losing. More hunters will fall to it. More lives will burn, and the cycle will go on. But it can end with knowledge. With hope.
He reached into his satchel, pulling free a journal, its leather cover weathered and strained. Within its pages were his observations, his strategies, and the lessons he had learned during his long and brutal journey.
I'll honor your memories. I'll leave behind the tools, the knowledge, everything you've imparted in me. If I can save even one hunter from becoming what we did, from falling to the blood, and maybe there is hope worth fighting for in the end.
Aldric tucked the journal back into his satchel. His footsteps echoed softly as he resumed his path, his shadows stretching long behind him.
The hunt calls.
He would face it, not with fire or fury, but with the quiet determination of a man who had learned from the ashes of his past.
May you find your worth in the waking world. Good hunter.